Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Daily English Voices. Today, you are not just going to study English, you are going to step into a living story and walk beside a man who began with almost nothing and still shaped the world with his mind, his habits, and his courage. This is a simple, clear retelling designed for your ears and your voice. So listen first, then shadow the sentences you like, and finally retell the parts in your own words. Because in this way, you will not only learn about Benjamin Franklin, you will also train your English in a natural, powerful way. Now take a breath and come with me to Boston in the early 18th century, a busy port city where a boy named Benjamin Franklin was born on January 17th, 1706, the 15th child in a very large family, a house full of noise, work, and small daily struggles, a house without the modern comforts we know today, where children helped their parents and learned early that life rewards effort. His father, Josiah Franklin, made soap and candles. His mother, Abiah Folger, kept the home and cared for the many children. There was little money, and there were no long years of schooling waiting for Benjamin. After only a short time in school, about 2 years, he had to leave at age 10 because the family could not afford more. It would have been easy to accept a small life and a small future, but the boy felt a big hunger in his mind, a hunger for ideas and for the secret laws that make the world work. So he searched for books, borrowed what he could, read at night by candlelight, and taught himself in the only university that never closes, the University of Personal Effort. He helped his father in the candle shop and soon learned that he did not want to spend his life dipping wicks and melting wax. He tried different trades, and at 12 he became an apprentice to his older brother James, a printer who ran a newspaper called the New England Courant. There in the dusty air of the shop, the smell of ink and paper, the rhythm of the press, the young Benjamin discovered the tools that would serve him all his life. Reading, writing, editing, thinking, asking better questions, and turning thoughts into clear sentences that could travel to many eyes and minds. He wanted to write for the paper, but his brother dismissed him as only a boy, so he did something clever. He wrote letters under a pen name, Silence Do Good, pretending to be a witty, thoughtful widow. He slipped those letters under the door at night, and the city loved them, and the paper printed them. When James found out, he burned with anger and jealousy, and their relationship cracked. So at 17, Benjamin left Boston with almost no money and walked and sailed his way to Philadelphia, tired, hungry, and unknown, carrying only a few coins, 3 loaves of bread, and a heart full of stubborn hope. In Philadelphia, he found work in a printing house, studied the habits of successful people, and set strict routines for himself. He got up early, saved his earnings, avoided useless entertainment, and spent night after night reading about science, philosophy, business, ethics, religion, and politics. He practiced writing by imitating the best sentences he could find. He practiced logic by weighing two sides of a question. He practiced public speaking in small groups before daring to speak in public. Soon, he noticed something important. When you do a little good each day without noise or pride, that good begins to multiply. At 21, he started a club called the Junto, a small group of working men who met every Friday to discuss books, local problems, inventions, and ways to improve the city. The Junto was not a school, but it became like one because real learning is a circle of friends asking honest questions and doing small, useful acts week after week. From the Junto came projects that would change Philadelphia: a lending library so ordinary people could borrow books, a volunteer fire company to protect homes and businesses, plans for a hospital to care for the sick poor, and eventually support for a college that would grow into the University of Pennsylvania. Notice the pattern. Franklin did not wait for permission or perfection. He asked what would help, and then he built the smallest useful version and improved it from there. After a few years of experience, he began his own printing business and soon bought a week newspaper, the Pennsylvania Gazette, which he strengthened with clear reporting, sharp humor, small lessons in science and practical wisdom, and a brave voice against corruption. He believed that newspapers should do more than carry advertisements and gossip. They should teach citizens to think. In 1732, he began publishing Poor Richard's Almanac under another pen name, Richard Saunders. The almanac mixed weather forecasts, jokes, puzzles, proverbs, and short paragraphs of advice on time, money, character, and common sense. Lines like, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Lost time is never found again, and well done is better than well said, spread across the colonies because they were brief, memorable, and true. People bought the little book every year for 25 years, and it made Franklin famous and financially secure. But he did not stop with business. He kept exploring questions that pulled on his mind. Electricity was a mysterious word in those days, more a magic show than a science. But Franklin felt that the shocks and sparks people played with were part of a larger natural system. He experimented with glass, silk, metal, jars that stored charge, bells that rang with invisible power, and he wrote about conductors and insulators, positive and negative charge, and ways to collect, store, and move this strange force. In 1752, he performed the careful kite experiment during a thunderstorm, not standing in the rain, as the legend sometimes says, but safely drawing charge, using a key and a wet string to prove that lightning in the sky and the electricity in his laboratory were the same. When he published his results, Europe took notice. What had seemed like fire from heaven became a natural phenomenon, something the human mind could study and, more importantly, control to protect life. From this work came the lightning rod, a simple metal path from a high point on a building down to the earth. A device that quietly saved barns, churches, warehouses, and homes from burning. Many resisted at first, but reality wins over fear, and the rod became normal. Franklin refused to patent the invention because he believed that knowledge which protects human life belongs to everyone. That same spirit shows up in his other creations. Bifocal lenses that help people see near and far without changing glasses. The Franklin stove that gave more heat with less smoke and less wood. The long arm for reaching books on high shelves. Early swimming paddles born from a boy's love of water. Even a musical instrument, the glass harmonica, that produced calm ringing tones from spinning glass bowls. Again, notice the pattern. He paid attention to small annoyances, designed a better tool, and then gave it away or sold it cheaply so others could benefit. By the 1760s, Franklin was well known not only in Philadelphia but also in London and Paris. He visited England as a representative for Pennsylvania and later for several colonies, and he learned how the powerful in Britain looked at the American colonists with a mix of curiosity, doubt, and superiority. When Parliament passed the Stamp Act in 1765, a tax on printed materials without giving colonists any voice in that decision, he answered with reason, explaining to the House of Commons that free men do not accept taxes without representation. He did not shout or threaten. He used clear examples, calm logic, and the common language of fairness. Soon the act was repealed, yet the deeper conflict did not end. Tension grew, and by 1775, fighting began between British troops and colonial militias. Franklin preferred peace and tried to bridge the gap, but there are times when a bridge cannot be built because the ground itself is breaking apart. In 1776, he joined other leaders Thomas Jefferson, John Adams, and more in drafting the Declaration of Independence, a document that announced a new nation on paper and demanded a new kind of courage in practice. Signing as an old man among many younger men, Franklin joked with dark truth, "We must all hang together, or assuredly we shall all hang separately, because failure meant death for every signer." The war against the greatest empire of the age required money, weapons, and ships, and America had few. So the 70-year-old Franklin crossed the Atlantic to France to persuade a king and his ministers to support a republic. It is hard to imagine the risk, the storms at sea, the political games at court, the careful dance of words in a room where one phrase too strong or too weak might ruin the mission. In Paris, Franklin wore simple clothes, spoke with polite wit, and treated common people with respect. He grew popular among artists and thinkers who admired his science and his belief in liberty. Year by year, he negotiated, wrote letters, organized loans, and finally secured a formal alliance. French ships and soldiers entered the war, and the balance shifted. When peace finally came in 1783 with the Treaty of Paris, Franklin was one of the chief negotiators. He had helped pull a new nation into being by a combination of clear thought, steady patience, and friendly charm. He then returned home older, famous, and loved, but the work of building a stable country had only begun. The loose union of states needed a stronger framework. Money, trade, and law were messy and conflicting. In 1787, the Constitutional Convention met in Philadelphia to write that framework. Franklin, now in his 80s and often in pain from gout and other illnesses, attended anyway. He did not speak often, but when he did, people listened, because his words carried the weight of a long life dedicated to common good. He reminded the delegates that perfection is not available on earth, that honest compromise can be a form of wisdom, and that unity is sometimes more moral than personal victory. When the Constitution was finished, he supported it, not because it matched his every wish, but because it was strong enough to guide a free people and flexible enough to be improved. This attitude, firm on principles, flexible on details, remains one of the most practical lessons he left for public life. In those same final years, he also deepened his criticism of slavery. Like many in his time, he had once accepted it as a normal part of society, but age and reflection sharpened his conscience. He became president of an abolition society in Pennsylvania, wrote essays against the trade and the practice, and petitioned the new Congress to end it. He believed that justice requires the strong to care about the pain of the weak, and that a republic built on liberty must face its contradictions with honesty. This was not a small step, because it challenged habits, money, and fear. But Franklin had always been willing to change his mind when the truth demanded it. That willingness to grow, to admit a mistake and correct it, is another piece of wisdom we can use in our own lives. Perhaps his most famous book is not a book of theories, but a small, unfinished autobiography. He started it as letters to his son, then continued it through the years as a general guide to living with purpose. In it, he tells simple stories about leaving school, running away to Philadelphia, starting a business, founding a library, traveling to London and Paris, and serving the public. He explains his daily schedule and his habit calendar, 13 virtues like temperance, silence, order, resolution, frugality, industry, sincerity, justice, moderation, cleanliness, tranquility, chastity, and humility, which he practiced one at a time each week while tracking his progress in a grid. This was not the pursuit of perfection, but the training of character through repeated small actions. He believed that improvement is a craft, that you can shape yourself as a carpenter shapes wood, a little at a time, with patience and attention. Many readers around the world still use this simple system today. Choose a few qualities that matter, measure them honestly, forgive your stumbles, and begin again tomorrow. He died on April 17th, 1790, at the age of 84. The news moved across the Atlantic and then across the world. In Philadelphia, tens of thousands joined his funeral, the largest the city had known. In Paris, people marched in silence. In London, former critics spoke with respect. He was buried near his wife, Deborah Reed, whose quiet strength had carried their household through many long years of separation and service. His own chosen epitaph was modest Benjamin Franklin Printer, because he never forgot the trade that taught him to arrange ideas as carefully as letters on a page. Titles did not interest him, usefulness did. Now you may ask, what can a modern English learner take from a life that began 3 centuries ago? What good are candles, kites, and printing presses in an age of phones, servers, and satellites? Here are the answers hidden in the story. Curiosity is a force stronger than poverty. When you do not have money or status, you can still ask questions. You can still borrow a book. You can still test an idea with your own hands. Discipline is a multiplier. If you wake early, save a little, and use your free hours to build skills, a year later you will be a different person. Community is a classroom, a small circle that meets regularly to read, debate, and plan. Good works can lift a whole city. Action beats talk. A library you actually open helps more than a plan you never start. Tools are moral things when they protect life and broaden freedom. Give away the credit when you can. Share the design you invented if it prevents harm. And when you are wrong, change. The person who knows how to change can keep learning to the end of life. For your English, the same laws apply. Read a little every day and read things that make you think, not only things that entertain you. Write short summaries in your own words and compare your sentences to clear models until your language becomes tight and direct. Shadow the parts of this story you liked most, copy the rhythm, and then retell the scene in your own city with your own details. Keep a habit grid like Franklin's. Choose 4 language virtues: listening, speaking, reading, writing. Focus on one each day of the week. Mark a dot when you complete the task, and watch the dots gather into lines and the lines become weeks of proof. When you feel lazy, remember that lost time is never found again, not as a punishment, but as a gentle reminder that the present moment is your only tool, always available, always enough to start a small good thing. When you feel afraid to speak, remember, well done is better than well said, and choose one useful sentence and say it to a real person. When you doubt your ability, remember that Franklin had 2 years of formal schooling and still taught himself to write, to print, to experiment, to negotiate, to govern. He did not wait to be ready. He began and improved while moving. Let us tighten the life lessons into simple, usable steps without breaking the flow. Begin with curiosity. Ask, how does this work, about one thing each day, and go find an answer. Build a morning and evening routine, 10 minutes to read and 10 minutes to write or speak, because small, regular doses beat rare, big efforts. Create your own junto by inviting 2 or 3 friends to meet weekly, share a short article, discuss it, and set one community action. however small. Choose a tool you use every day and improve it by 1% in design or process, because better tools create better days. Measure a tiny number: pages read, minutes spoken, words written, and aim for steady lines rather than dramatic spikes. Review your week every Sunday night and plan the next with simple questions: what worked, what failed, what will I try? When you gain a little success, look for ways to turn it outward: mentor someone, donate a book, publish a clear tutorial, volunteer for a local project so your growth feeds other people's growth. When you face a hard choice, prefer the path that serves more than just yourself, because that path makes meaning. And when you fall behind, do not waste energy on guilt. Reset, forgive, and begin again, just as Franklin did every time he turned the page of his virtue chart and started a new week. If you want an image to carry with you, imagine the boy with 3 loaves of bread, one under his arm and one in each hand, walking down a strange street in a strange city, tired but moving forward. That picture is not only history, it is a mirror. The bread in your hands is the time and attention you control today. You may feel awkward, you may feel small, you may not know who will open a door for you, but if you keep walking, keep learning, keep serving, and keep speaking honestly, your steps will lead somewhere. And if you keep your mind and heart open, you will meet your own Deborah Reed moments, people who first see you when you are small and later stand beside you when your work has grown. None of this requires genius. It requires daily courage. Genius, in this story, is the name we give to curiosity plus discipline plus kindness, sustained over many years. So let this be your practice. Listen to this story once for the whole shape, then listen again and shadow the sentences that carry energy for you. Then close your eyes and retell it in simple words from your own life. Say, I do not need to be perfect to begin. I can begin and improve. I can build a small club. I can read for 15 minutes. I can track 4 habits this week. I can turn one idea into one action. I can choose fairness when it costs me something. I can change my mind when I learn better. I can give credit. I can be useful. Print those lines or write them on a card and put it where you see it each morning. Carry them like a pocket version of Poor Richard's Almanac for your own life. Then, when fear comes, read them aloud and take one small step. By the time the day ends, you will already be a person who kept a promise to yourself. Benjamin Franklin's story is not a statue to look at from far away. It is a set of practical tools you can hold in your hands: a schedule, a notebook, a library card, a small group, a habit tracker, a simple experiment, a respectful letter to someone powerful, a friendly conversation with a neighbor about how to fix a problem on your street. Use these tools, and you will feel your life becoming clearer and your English becoming stronger, because both grow from the same roots: attention, repetition, and honest effort. May this episode remind you that a life of service is not made from big speeches and dramatic moments, but from quiet mornings and steady afternoons. And may you remember the safe truth hidden inside his most famous lines: time is money, because time is life. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, because thinking ahead is a form of love. Well done is better than well said, because action frees us from fear. Start today, continue tomorrow, and do not stop. If the son of a candle maker with 2 years of school could read his way into wisdom, write his way into influence, invent his way into safety, negotiate his way into peace, and think his way into a constitution, then you and I can surely speak our way into confidence, learn our way into opportunity, and serve our way into joy. Thank you for listening, my friends. Now close this video, open your notebook, and write 3 sentences you will act on before the day ends. Then take a deep breath, stand up, and go make them true.